Next week, the Labour government will mark 1 year in power. But after another humiliating U-turn, there might not be much cause for celebration. While Keir Starmer was abroad this week, more than 120 of his Labour MPs organised a rebellion against his welfare reforms, forcing the Prime Minister to back down.
But the most important thing is that we can make the reform we need. We talk to colleagues who've made powerful representations, as a result of which we've got a package which I think will work and we can get it right. And for me, getting that package adjusted in that way is the right thing to do.
It's because of disabled people like Frankie, who lives with albinism and is partially sighted, that so many Labour MPs pressured the government to change course.
Where the government should be focusing on is not disabled people or penalising them, should be on helping, supporting them and building their confidence and reassuring them that their benefits won't be affected if they do try, get into work or it doesn't work out.
Anyone receiving personal independence payments and the Universal Credit Health top-up will no longer see their payments change. But from November next year, new claimants will face tighter requirements. Disability rights groups will work with the government on a new system. All of this will cost the government around £3 billion. Disability charities say the proposals risk creating a two-tier benefits system.
The truth is that today, if you need some help getting washed and dressed, then that help is available for you. But what the government is suggesting is that in a couple of years' time, someone in exactly the same position wouldn't need that support. And that's nonsense. So we're calling the government to halt the welfare bill, come back and talk to disabled people, work together with us to create a welfare system that works for everyone.
And although many Labour MPs say they'll now back the government next week, dozens still plan to vote against.
We're all just one car crash or cancer diagnosis away from being in this position. And that's the whole point of the welfare state, is that it's meant to be there to catch you when you need it for everyone. And this bill doesn't do that.
Keir Starmer's party still has a huge parliamentary majority, but his authority has been severely damaged. Harry Horton, News at 10.
Well, the initial cuts to the winter fuel allowance and to welfare were made in part, of course, to raise much-needed cash for the Treasury. But after the latest U-turn, how will the shortfall now be made up? Well, Carl, lucky chap, has been trying to balance the books for us. Take us through it, Carl.
Well, I'm glad I don't actually have to do it, Julie, because the Prime Minister's welfare U-turn is certainly an expensive one. Protecting the existing PIP claimants is expected to cost an extra £1.5 billion a year over what was planned. And then unfreezing Universal Credit's health element and the other changes will cost another £1.5 billion, making this a £3 billion U-turn. And of course, that amount has to be added to the U-turn made earlier this month on winter fuel payments. That too will cost as much as £1.5 billion. And there are other political problems just over the horizon too. The two-child benefit cap, for example. The Prime Minister has been hinting that he would like to scrap it.
I want to get to the root causes of child poverty. One of the greatest things the last Labour government did was to drive down child poverty. I'm determined we will do that.
Now, his backbenchers certainly want it scrapped, but getting rid of that cap would cost another £3.5 billion. And all of this comes at a time when the economic outlook is not really helping the Chancellor's numbers.
We've seen changes in interest rates, changes in the outlook for the economy as a whole that are probably going in the wrong direction. And so when it comes to the budget this autumn, that suggests that the government might have some pretty difficult choices if they want to maintain their fiscal rules.
And we haven't even started to talk about defence yet. The Prime Minister has already taken £6 billion out of the foreign aid budget and put it into the defence budget. But this week, he also promised to lift core defence spending from 2.6% of GDP to 3.5% of GDP by 2035. That would cost at least £30 billion a year extra in today's money. And so economists aren't so much asking whether the Chancellor will rise taxes in the autumn, Julie. They're asking which taxes and by how much.
So there's a lot of questions for Him and, of course, his Chancellor too, Carl. This has been a really terrible week for Keir Starmer, hasn't it? And just ahead of that anniversary of the landslide at the end of next week, he's been in quite reflective mood, hasn't he, with some regrets over the past year?
Yeah, regrets, and he's had a few. He's given a remarkable, frankly, interview to his biographer Tom Baldwin in The Observer, where he talks about the firebomb attack on his phone, on his home, I beg your pardon. He talks about his brother's death, and then he has this kind of confessional list of things that he says he's done wrong. He was wrong to be so gloomy when he first came into office. He was wrong to make Sue Gray his chief of staff. And most strikingly, he says he was wrong in that speech he gave about immigration to warn about Britain becoming an island of strangers. He says he deeply regrets that. It is really unusual to hear senior politicians admit to doing anything wrong. And yet, in this interview, Keir Starmer does it again and again and again.